Residents are relatively new in this neighborhood, and they loved it until last night's flood. The story coming up.
Storms that tracked through the area this week caused flooding problems in some areas which seldom have them. This includes a neighborhood in White Oak, which Wayne Van Dyne visited today.
Lincoln Way in White Oak had not been flood-prone in recent years, but storm runoff overwhelmed the sanitary sewer, making a mess for several people, including Rick and Corey.
My whole cellar was flooded with soil and crap and mud and everything else, and I was just concerned on, first of all the stuff that I had lost, and just like a disaster to me.
At the height of the storm last night, the water started coming up through the drains, and it was about up to here, which of course soaked the carpet and much of the belongings. The carpet may or may not be saved, but despite the losses incurred this time, his main concern is, hey, is this going to happen every time it rains hard?
And I hope it doesn't happen again. And if I can, I'll do something about it along with the other neighbors that this all happened to. We spent a lot of money for water, sewage, and taxes in this borough, and they should be able to handle whatever amount of rain we get.
At the borough building, they expected flooding on Vermont, for instance, which had been hit before, and they're trying to solve that. But Lincoln Way?
Yeah, that was a surprise to everybody. We'll have to look at that with our engineer and determine what caused it, if it's going to be a chronic problem or if it was just a one-time problem. But we will look at it and try to solve it.
So the residents have legitimate concerns, and they are asking the right questions, and so far they're getting the right answers here in White Oak Borough, because they're just as concerned about what happened and why. Stan's Restaurant was also hit.
Well, we had about 2 foot of water down there.
But you had to close, huh?
We closed up and had to hire people to come in and clean the mess up.
That's now completed, and they're open again. The borough's insurance carrier will have several claims. Wayne Van Dyne in White Oak.
Now, Wayne says storm water flooding is excluded on most insurance policies, but when sewage is involved, it can indicate a system failure, which should be covered.
Well, the old Pittsburgh...
Trying to find out what caused this big fire at the Black Light Saloon and Dance Hall on Lincoln Way. Fire started in the club shortly after 4 this morning. The club had been recently shut down. Nobody there was injured. Today, Cheryl Curtison will undergo more surgery on the...
What you go through to buy a car. But here's some facts you can be sure of. John Aretta Buick has one of the Tri-State's largest inventories of Buicks. We are recognized as having one of the best service departments in the nation. We don't just say we're family, we are family.
And we don't make promises we can't keep.
So make it easy on yourself. Come home to John Aretta Buick for your best price and best service.
John Aretta Buick, Route 48 in White Oak.
It's Shop and Save's 30th anniversary celebration, and we're serving up shopping spree prizes, great savings, and more. Look for entry.
Formerly known as the White Elephant on Lincoln Way between Route 48 and McClintock Road. 10 fire companies there. We have a photographer on the scene. Hope to have pictures for you a little bit later, but expect some traffic delays through that area. At this hour, it started at about 4 o'clock at the Blacklight Saloon on Lincoln Way. That's between Route 48 and McClintock Road. We understand there are about 10 fire companies on the scene. So far, no injuries have been reported in that fire. However, expect some traffic delays today because Lincoln Way in the 2200 block has now been closed because of the fire. So if you normally head that direction, you're going to take an alternate route this morning. While the search for a missing airman can the White Elephant, it's in the 2200 block of Lincoln Way. 10 fire companies on the scene. No injuries reported, but traffic detours are in effect.
Saloon on Lincoln Way consumed in a rush of flames. Now, the hall was recently closed, so no one was inside at the time of the fire. No reports of injuries this morning. Fire companies from several surrounding communities were called in to fight that fire this morning. Winter lingers and the icy roads made driving hazardous this morning. Lots of accidents, including this one on East Ohio Street on the north side.
What may have sparked the blaze at the Blacklight Saloon on Lincoln Way. That fire began sometime before 4 this morning. There were no injuries.
A Johnstown man is one of 7 people killed when a U.S. military plane crashes off the coast of Kenya. 32-year-old Anthony Stefanik died
today. Destroyed a well-known nightclub that has been around since the 50s. The club has had many names in the past years, some of which you will probably recognize. Mary Rob Jackson says most recently it has been called the Black Light Saloon and Dance Hall.
Smoke was first spotted by a passing motorist on Lincoln Way about 4 this morning. The Blacklight Saloon and Dance Hall was fully engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived. 10 companies eventually responded. According to police, the club is currently owned by Joseph Martinelli of Jeanette, but had been closed for months for remodeling. There were over a dozen vacant apartments on the second floor. A sign indicated it would reopen again in April. But the Blacklight was only the latest in a long line of names for this night spot, which began in the 50s as the Club Belvedere. It then became a hangout for the disco and teenage crowd as the White Elephant, Zodiac, Flicks, 2002, and Dynasty.
It seemed to go in spurts. You know, sometimes they'd be doing a great business, and then other times it'd be dead.
By daylight, firefighters were still trying to put out hot spots, and the Allegheny County Fire Marshal was at the scene trying to figure out what started it. Bone-weary firefighters say this was a tough one.
We've had building collapse, the roof caved in. It's got a rubber roof right now. We're having fire up underneath the rubber roof. We're having trouble getting at it.
Firefighters also had trouble getting access to hydrants. The weather didn't help either. There were no serious injuries. In White Oak, I'm Mary Rob Jackson, KDKA Eyewitness News.
Now, Mary Rob spoke with the fire marshal's office late this afternoon, but investigators still had not determined a cause. A local man
in flames. The hall was recently closed. No one was inside at the time of that fire, and no one was hurt.
Remember that huge sinkhole in Westmoreland County?
Said about Hillary.
You can't?
I can't.
Why don't you just whisper it to me, just between